I picked this up last month at a local con. I've heard about Ms. Tree for a while, basically just from posts from people on Instagram, especially Comics Holler and also Comic Book Manifesto. But I really didn't know this even existed until maybe a year ago or so. So when I was at the con, I saw this for $2, and I figured, well, let me just try it and see, you know, if I liked it. And if you're an aficionado of this series, then you know that after being published on independent presses, that there was a series of about eight quarterly books. This is the eighth one. Then there was a summer annual, and then there was a 1993 annual, and then that's the series apparently has ended, at least in comic book form. So the cover, I forget the name, I'm sorry, of the artist. I'll put in the notes. He went on to have a career in illustration, but did covers like this. He's painted covers in the 90s. So first thing I do is open this up, and I love this splash page. Profile shots are kind of hard to do. This is great. Just I love the composition, and then you just have blam, 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 blam. It's just a great way. It's a nice cold open just to start things off. And then you see, and then I just love how things are shown, but not in a very subtle way, but enough for you to put it together, because then you hear screech, crash, and this guy, Rawr! So you know that she hit her target. And she's standing here in the rain, and I've seen Terry Beatty's art from when I was reading Marvel Comics in the 80s. But I never really thought much of it, but he's very good. He has a very nice Dave Gibbons type of aesthetic, where he's not going to blow you away with cross-hatching and super roided people and whatever, but the storytelling is very effective. The composition is clean. You see enough that you need to see. You don't see a lot of extra stuff. This is just drawn very well. So the story is, spoilers, Mysteries. It starts off where she's very pregnant, shoots someone, and then they do the flashback. And apparently, this story continues with the preceding events. She's pregnant, and I'm not familiar with this at all. So they do a nice job of backfilling, like who the father is, why he's no longer around, how some of these people connect. I love the acting that's in these books. I love, where she has her friend has a sympathetic look, and then she's just looking down, and then just this close up. And then there's these series of events where there's almost all these near misses, these accidents that you got to wonder, are they really near misses and just coincidence, or somebody trying to actively hurt her or kill her and the baby? The conversations, one thing I would say is that it presents pregnancy in a very real way, because she mentions having to pee for like the 11th time this morning and how uncomfortable she is. And for the early 90s, this is pretty advanced, because you usually didn't see this in the big two. I mean, you didn't really deal with pregnancy, but you didn't deal with pregnancy in a very honest way. Again, just great facial acting. I love the composition. I love how, like, these three panels where she's talking to him, so point of view is here, and then she's continues to talk to him, but the point of view is over here. But it kind of like she's looking at the same person. Just really subtle, nice tricks. It fills in the backstory, but it doesn't do it in that clumsy exposition-y way that like Marvel and DC Comics would. Where like, but it does that thing where it fills in enough. So if this is the first mystery comic you ever read, you know enough to know how everything makes sense and you can follow the story. Just effective writing and storytelling. So there's another almost near accident, and then she's trying to figure out who it is. So she goes to this like mob king, and she's like, "Is it you trying to kill me?" And he's like, "No, you're off limits." And you see this look of like surprise. And she's like, "Why am I off limits?" Because they've had bad history. And she goes, "Well, your son is going to marry my niece, So now you're going to be part of the family. So I'm not going to sit here and kill my her niece's husband's mom. So he's like, hey, it wasn't me. So they're trying to figure out who it is. They realize that her husband, or not husband, sorry, the father of a child, owned this conglomerate. So a cousin's taking over. So she actually visits the father of child's father, who's old and infirm. And she's like, is it you? Because look, I don't want your money. He's like, no, really? Because you're pregnant? I didn't know that. He's like, oh my God, this is so great. There's a piece of my son that lives. So I love this emotional acting where she's just really mad and she's telling him off. And then she's stunned because he responded differently than she expected. So there's more to this going on. You have these like hitmen that are like out to like do in this tree. This guy reminds me of Dax Harwood, the wrestler from AEW. Same mustache, same shaved head, everything. It's funny. And so they're in this house that's like she owns, but it's like in a small town. And it's a very simple but effective story. And so when her friend says, I'm going to get some groceries, and I just love this one scene, like the dialogue here. He goes, do you need anything? She goes, you want me to pick up anything? He goes, yeah, I could pick up some things, but stop by that pizza place and get me a sauerkraut, Canadian bacon, and pineapple thick crust, would you? And she's replies, you are pregnant. Again, it's that making pregnancy more realistic. And so they realize that her friend leaves, so they say, okay, let's do it now. And I love this wordless sequence. This is just really effective storytelling. So you can see that he's trying to break into the house. She's asleep. And I just love how here they show her, then they zoom in a little bit more, and then they zoom in a little bit more, and then he finds her. And then just when he rips the tape, that's when she wakes up, and he's bounding her, and he's going to, I guess, kill her. But she's pretty bad. I mean, she's pretty tough, like bad being good. And she just knocks him down the stairs, and his neck breaks. And I love this sequence because you can tell that his neck is snapped because the neck doesn't do that. And then here she is, because she's killed a lot of people, and she takes really no remorse for killing a lot of people and, you know, defending her life. But you can just, I love this, how you can just tell she's smiling by the way her cheeks go up here and the way her eyes work and everything, but you don't need to see the smile. It is really good art. Just clean, effective storytelling. And so he thinks, oh, you know, his partner's done. And then she opens the door and she's like, hey, I'm going to get you too. And then here you have the scene from the splash page. And I love how maybe it was copied, I don't know, but I just love how this looks exactly like this. But here you see the bullets hit. And then you see that he runs into a tree. Her friend comes. And police, sheriff that she knows in that small town, they pick her up and they take her to the hospital. Then the guy who actually ordered the hit meets with the mob boss. And he's like, you know, she's off limits. He's like, yeah, but I thought if I get rid of her, it'd be good business for us. He's like, her son is marrying my niece. He's like, and then it's that weird code of honor that some of these guys have, where he says, you're killing a pregnant woman? Have you no shame? Like, they'll kill anybody, but like killing a pregnant woman is like almost like too much. And then he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And then he decides just to kill him. And then you just see him say no with that close up. And then the next scene, he's just dead with, like, I guess, bullet wounds, and he's just bleeding. And then you have here, and then you have, and she's holding the baby. And it's just a really effective story. I've never read Mystery before, but I knew what was going on. I knew how all the characters interconnected. I didn't feel like it was too exposition-y. It's a really well done story, and I've become a fan. And then this also has a backup issue, King Faraday's story. The story's not bad. It's like a little bit of a story, like, but it doesn't really end. Maybe they continued it somewhere else. But pencils are by Carmine Infantino and inks by Frank McLaughlin. And Frank McLaughlin did the inks on Justice League from like 1975, 1984, when I was reading, when I was like not even a teenager, to my teenage years. I really liked his inks. He was very solid, so it was kind of like a art-wise, like a path down memory lane. It was a cool story, but the star really is Miss Tree. These are just really great comics. If the other stories are like this, I could tell you that they're going to be great comics, and I'm going to want to read them. And just a subtle note, they have the letters page here, and I love these old school letter pages where they would actually print the full addresses of people. Now you couldn't do it, but like back then, it's really crazy. And I always read this because you always wonder, like, if somebody that became famous in comics or famous in some type of creative media did. I don't recognize anybody, but that's just kind of a cool touch. So for $2, great buy. Love the story, love the series. And I liked it so much that I checked this out from the library. Now, apparently, Titan Books is working with Max Allan Collins and Terry Beatty and creating these quote-unquote archive series, these trade paperbacks that collect the stories because for most of its run, Miss Tree was done by Independence. I think a lot of it was Eclipse. So they're hard to find. This way it's a nice collection. And I'm going to read this. And naturally, this story is contained in here. But I will say that I'm not sure if this is the way to go. I mean, for convenience sake, this is nice to have them all collected. But there's a couple of things I don't like about this collection. One, it's smaller. And I don't know if they do that just to make it more profitable. I don't know if they do that. This is from 2019, so I don't think there was a paper shortage. I just don't like it when a publisher does these reprints, but then they make them smaller. I saw this a lot with Dark Horse, with a lot of their Mobius stuff. It just takes away something. I mean, it's not like manga, which is fine reading it small. It's made for that format. This is made for a comic book size page. It should be a comic book size. That's one. And the second thing, and I'm going to read this from in the introduction by Max Allan Collins, is that these collections are not done in numerical order. They're like all these 5 stories, 2 or 3 of them are back to back to back, but then there's other stories in here. So if you collect volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're not reading it fully chronological. And there's a quote here where he says, quote, "I am more concerned with each of these volumes having an integrity and coherence than just slamming everything into books in the order of their first appearance." Now, I don't really understand that because these stories apparently, they look like they build on each other. They don't time shift, or maybe if they do, I don't think they really do much of that. It's a continuing saga. So I don't understand how presenting them in the order they were published is somehow compromises the integrity of it or the fluidity of it, because these books were made to be on a monthly basis. So I don't know if that's just him being an artist. I don't know if that's him deciding to make you buy more than one copy, because if you only need the later issues, you can buy the later ones and skip the first ones. And if you need the early ones, you can buy the early ones but skip the later ones. You're forced to buy and almost check off which issues are covered, which I think is a disservice to the fans. And these trades aren't cheaper. I mean, this was 2019, I apologize, and it's $24.95, and they've gotten more expensive since then. So I don't know what that whole thing is about, but I think you have to service the fans. And if the fans, or someone who's like me, never read this and would like to read it in chronological order, I can't. And I'm not going to sit here and figure out what issue is covered where, just to fulfill some continuity or integrity or whatever that comment was. I think it's a service. So I'm not sure I would go for this. I would think I would rather try to find the older issues for cheap. You can find them in maybe dollar bins or something and pick those up if you want to read it in order, or else you're going to have to make a list of all the issues from Wikipedia, which you can find, and then you're going to have to sit here and figure out what issue was covered where, which I think is, you're making the reader work which to me, I'm sorry, it makes no sense. You got to make it easy for the reader so there's easier buy-in. Covered by Dennis Cowan. These books are published. They look great. This story looks just like it does in the comics, same color. Good quality. But again, you're not getting in a chronological order. And I know that with 11 Rockets, they split up between Jaime and Beto, but those are still presented in chronological order. It's just that they're done by a different creator. This is the same creative team that's been on this book for 10 years at this time. I don't get why you split it. So I'm going to read it, but I'm not going to buy these issues, probably the rest of them, just because of that. But I will say this is a great series. I don't know a lot about Ms. Tree. There's a lot of information you can find. If anybody's a fan and has any insights, I'd like to know in the comments. But this is just a really solid, well-made comic, and you don't really see this much in the big two. Yeah, it's not flashy. It doesn't have to be flashy. It's telling you a straight-ahead detective story. So that's it. This is high on my recommendation list, and if I find other ones at cons and I find them in the $1 or $2 bins, I'm picking them up. These are great stories. So that's really it. Hope you enjoy this insight and have a great day. And since everybody has marching orders and all that stuff, I'm going to give you marching orders. Read better comics. Don't read more comics. Don't keep reading comics. Don't be more comics. Read better comics. Trust me, you'll thank me for that. Anyway, thanks.